Welcome to the audiobook channel. Here, we bring you a treasure trove of knowledge and entertainment from classic literature to inspiring modern books. We hope to bring you interesting and rewarding experiences, making it easy for you to access knowledge whether you're on the go or relaxing at home. Join us in exploring the world of fascinating stories and valuable lessons through each page of the book. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Part 1. 6 Ways to Make a Good Impression. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Part 1. Chapter 4. Chapter 4. Genuine Interest in Others. The New York Telephone Company once conducted a detailed study of telephone calls to find out which word was used most often. The results showed that it was the first-person pronoun, I. It was used 3,900 times in 500 telephone calls. When you see a group photo of yourself, who do you look for first? If you believe that everyone is interested in you, please answer the following question. If I were to die today, how many people would come to see me off? When we try to impress others just to get them to care about us, we will never have many true friends. Those who do not care about their fellow human beings will have the greatest difficulties in life and will cause the greatest harm to others and then to themselves. It is from these individuals that all human failures and disasters arise. I once took a short story writing course at New York University. The director of a leading magazine said, "If you don't care about people, don't expect to be a successful short story writer." He said that just by reading a few paragraphs of any short story, he could tell whether the author loved his readers or not. If the writer didn't care about and respect his readers, they wouldn't like his stories. The same goes for dealing with people. I had the opportunity to talk to Howard Thurston, a world-famous magician, during his last appearance on Broadway. Over the past 40 years, he had amazed more than 60 million people with his performances, and earned a total of $2 million from his work. I asked Thurston what his secret to success was, and he said that school education had nothing to do with his success. As a boy, he ran away from home, hopped trains, slept on the streets, and begged from house to house. He learned the words from advertising billboards and road signs. Did he have a super technique in magic? No. He said there were hundreds of books written about magic and dozens of better performers than he. However, he had two things that others did not have. First, he had the ability to highlight his personality above the stage lights. He was a master magician. He understood human nature. Everything he did, every gesture, every tone of voice, every glance was carefully calculated in advance. Every move he made was calculated to a fraction of a second. Second, and this is very important, he had a real love for the audience. He said, "Many magicians look at the audience and say to themselves, 'Good job. These are a bunch of gullible provincials. I can fool them easily.' As for him, it's different. I'm grateful to the people who come to see me perform. They give me the opportunity to make a living with a very interesting profession. I will give them my best performances." He never stepped into the limelight without saying to himself, "I love my audience. I love you all." You may think that his way of speaking sounds silly and funny, but it was actually the method used successfully by one of the most famous magicians of all time. This was also the secret of President Theodore Roosevelt. Even the servants loved him. James Amos, a servant of Roosevelt, wrote a book about him titled, Theodore Roosevelt, Idol of the Servants. In the book, there is a passage, "Once my wife asked the president what a partridge looked like because she had never seen one. At that time, he described it to her in detail. A moment later, we had a phone call, and the president was on the other end of the line. He called and told my wife, 'There is a partridge in the yard. Just look out the window and you will see it.'" That was his personality, always friendly and considerate. Whenever he passed our room, even though he didn't see my wife, and I hear, he would call Annie or James loudly, as if he were greeting a friend. How could the staff not love leaders like that? How could people not love a personality like that? Roosevelt was also respected for his humble personality. After leaving office, he was invited to the White House once. When President Taft and his wife were not there, he went and greeted all the former staff he met by their intimate names. When he met the kitchen maid, Alice, he asked, "Does Alice still make cornbread?" She replied, "I do, but now only for the waiters." "Oh, why don't they enjoy it?" he said immediately. "I'll tell the president when he returns," and happily accepts the cornbread Alice gave him later. On his way out, he waved goodbye to all the gardeners he met. Roosevelt's appreciation for those who had worked and served him before him touched us deeply. Hoover, the head of the White House Guard, who worked for more than 40 years, emotionally recalled, "It's been 2 years since we had such a happy day. No amount of money can buy such feelings. An ordinary person can still get the attention, time, and cooperation of famous people by showing genuine interest and admiration for them. Many years ago, I organized a course on how to write novels at the Brooklyn Academy of Arts and Sciences. We wanted famous authors to come to Brooklyn and share their valuable experiences. So we wrote letters to these famous authors, expressing our appreciation and admiration for their works, and looking forward to receiving advice and learning the secrets of success from them. Each letter was signed by nearly 150 students. While we were presenting, we understood that the authors were very busy and could not prepare a lecture, so we attached a list of questions on writing methods for them to answer. And the result was that all those famous people came to Brooklyn to share with us. By this method, I also persuaded Shaw, the Secretary of the Treasury in the Roosevelt administration, and many other eminent people to speak to the institutes. A worker in a factory, an employee in an agency, or a king on the throne, loves people who admire him. There is a very simple principle. If we want to have real friends, we should think and do something for them, give them time, energy, and unselfish attention. I have had the habit of discreetly asking my friends when they were born many years ago. At the beginning of each year, I note these birthdays in my pocket calendar. When those days come, I will send them a letter or a gift. If you want to make friends, greet them with enthusiasm and excitement. When someone calls you, say, "Hello," in a tone that shows genuine interest. Have you ever heard of the smiling voice? Companies train their telephone operators to greet callers with a tone that exudes joy, interest, and enthusiasm. Callers will feel genuinely cared for. Don't forget this when you make or answer the phone today. Showing genuine interest in others will not only help you make more friends, but it can also increase customer loyalty to your company. In an issue of the North American National Bank of New York newspaper, the editorial office published a letter from a customer named Madeline to the bank's president. The letter read, "I want you to know that I really like the employees of your bank. Everyone is polite, courteous, and willing to help. It was nice to be greeted by a cheerful teller after waiting for so long. My mother was in the hospital for several months last year, and I often dealt with Margaret. She cared about my whole family and asked about my mother's health. Do you think Madeline would leave this bank?" Charles Walters, an employee of one of the largest banks in New York, was assigned to prepare a confidential report on a corporation. He knew only one person who had the information he urgently needed. When Walters was brought into the office of the person who held this important information, he heard the young clerk say, "I don't have any stamps for you today." He explained to Walters, "I'm collecting stamps for my 12-year-old son." Walters explained his work and began asking questions. The manager was vague, giving general answers without getting to the point. He didn't want to talk and nothing seemed to convince him to. "The interview was short and dry," said Mr. Walters, as he recounted the story to my class. "I honestly didn't know what to do. Then I remembered what the secretary had told him about the stamps, the 12-year-old boy, and I remembered that our Foreign Affairs Department deals with letters from all over the world, so we have stamps from many countries." The next afternoon I visited the head of the department and wrote him a little note in advance saying that I had secured some stamps for his son. He shook my hand as warmly as if he were courting voters for his way into Congress. His face was beaming with goodwill and his demeanor was clear. "My son George would love these," he said, looking at and caressing the stamps. "What a treasure." We spent half an hour talking about stamps and looking at pictures of the boy. He then spent over an hour giving me all the information I needed, without even prompting me, and then called in other staff to add more. He also called several of his associates. He provided me with a wealth of new information, facts, photos, reports, and correspondence. In the parlance of reporters, I had the hottest, most exciting news. Here's another illustration. For years, NAFL, in Philadelphia, had been trying to sell fuel to a large multi-level marketing organization, but the company continued to buy fuel from an out-of-town supplier, who delivered it right to NAFL's doorstep. One evening, speaking to my class, Mr. NAFL expressed his frustration with the multi-level marketing company. I suggested he try a different approach. We held a debate with the academics in our class about how the growth of multi-level marketing was doing more harm than good to the country. At my suggestion, NAFL sided with the supporters, endorsing and defending multi-level marketing organizations. He then went straight to an executive of the MLM organization he had been upset with. "I didn't come here to try to sell fuel. I came here to ask you to help me with something." He then told me about the discussion. "I came to you because I couldn't think of anyone else who had the knowledge and ability to give me the advice I needed. I would be very grateful for your help." After listening to me for a minute, he asked me to sit down and talked with me for exactly 1 hour and 47 minutes. He called another executive who had written a book on MLM and was working for the National MLM Association. and gave me a copy of the discussion on the subject. He felt that MLM was doing something real for people. He was proud of what he was doing for hundreds of communities. As he spoke, his eyes lit up, and I have to admit that he opened my eyes. He saw things I never dreamed of. He changed my whole attitude and perspective. When I left, he walked me to the door, put his arm around me, and wished me success in the debate. He kindly asked me to come back and let him know how it went. His last words were, "I hope you will come back. I would like to order your fuel." To me, it was almost a miracle. He was willing to buy my fuel without my having to suggest or ask, just by showing a genuine interest in him and his work, not by trying to get him interested in me and my product. In less than 2 hours, I had achieved a result that I had been searching for in vain for the past 10 years. It was not that Mr. Naffel had discovered a new truth. 100 years before the birth of Christ, the famous Roman poet Publius observed, "We care for others only when they care for us." The way to express concern is similar to the application of other principles in human relations. It must be sincere, not false. It must benefit both the person expressing concern and the person receiving the concern. The end result must always be a win-win for both parties. Martin Gilbeck, a student of mine in Long Island, New York, told of a nurse who made a special impression on him and had a profound impact on his life. It was Thanksgiving Day, when I was 10 years old. I was in a charity hospital in the city to undergo a major operation the next day. I knew that I would have to endure pain and be confined to bed for months. My father had passed away, and my mother and I lived in a small room. Unfortunately, that day, my mother was sick and could not come to visit me. That day dragged on and on. A feeling of loneliness, disappointment and fear enveloped me. I knew my mother was also home alone, worried that I had no one by my side. No one to eat with and not even enough money to treat me to a Thanksgiving dinner. Tears of self-pity kept flowing. I put my head on the pillow, pulled the blanket over me to keep warm, and cried alone in silence. Pain, self-pity and love for mother. My whole body was in pain as if I was being tortured. A nurse trainee heard my crying and came to me. She pulled the blanket off my face and started wiping my tears. She shared with me her feelings of loneliness and confided that she was also very sad because she had to work and could not return to her family during this time of need. Then, she invited me to have lunch with her, which was 2 trays of food, with dishes usually eaten on Thanksgiving. According to the plan, at 4 p.m., she could have left, but she stayed with me. Until 11 p.m. she joked and talked with me, until I fell asleep. Many other Thanksgivings have come and gone in my life, but I will always remember that Thanksgiving, I was immersed in the coldness of feeling lost, lonely and scared, but suddenly found warmth and tenderness from a complete stranger. From that moment on, I was given a miraculous strength to overcome all the pain and sadness that happened in my life. Genuine interest in others will create miracles, not only for others, but also for yourself. Always remember that you have 2 hands, one for helping yourself and one for helping others. A person can do almost anything if he has unlimited enthusiasm. Charles Watts. Principle 4. Genuine interest in others. Thank you for following and supporting our channel. Your companionship is a great motivation for us to continue creating quality and useful content. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our latest videos. Please click the subscribe button and turn on notifications to stay updated with interesting news and videos from us. Thank you very much.